From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Speaking with the Enemy.
Yes, the show is called Speaking with the Enemy, and that's always referring to the other teams, not my individual guests. And I always feel like it's necessary to clarify that, especially when I bring in a guy like Natey Adjei from TSN 1050. Of course, you know him as the Argos color broadcaster. Also does some work covering the Raptors. And Natey, you are my friend, despite what the name of the show is called. So thank you, my friend, for doing this. It's great to see you.
Great to see you as well, and no worries. I love coming on this show, even if you keep that title the same. I still love coming on this show.
It's the free agency edition of Speaking with the Enemy, and the Toronto Argonauts, obviously not the way they wanted their season to end, considering the regular season they had, riding that high. It was the Ticats who got their spot in the Grey Cup. But what do you see when you look at this Argonauts team heading into free agency? What are your general thoughts?
You know, team going into the season that has signed a lot of free agents, right? A lot of guys from Calgary, a lot of big name type of guys, and the expectations were high, but they weren't high where they weren't going to kick themselves if they didn't make the playoffs, right? They're a team that wanted to take the next step. The season prior, they would only won 3 games, right? So they want to see some improvement. They got a new coach, Coach Dinwiddie, and he brought in a new staff. And new quarterback, which ended up getting changed to McLeod Bethel-Thompson, as you had mentioned. But the expectation was at least to make the playoffs, and they end up doing that. But as the season went on, and the fans and the team saw how well this team started to gel together, things started to ramp up a little bit. We started thinking about Grey Cup possibilities, and the team was playing so well that it justified that. So obviously, the end result of the season wasn't what we all wanted, especially in Toronto, just the way the season had gone. It was an overall successful season, just if you base it off of what they had done the season prior.
Well, to that point, so, I mean, if expectations weren't super sky high heading into 2021, that all changes, I have to think, heading into 2022. They did have the best record in the East Division. They were 1 game away from making the Grey Cup. So how do you expect, Dinwiddie, Pinball, how do you expect them to approach this free agency window, knowing that, all right, we did build something special. How do we make sure that we don't take 2 steps forward, 1 step back?
I expected aggressive nature. I mean, we saw the aggressiveness last offseason with all the signings, right? But this offseason, they already started with getting their quarterback locked up. McLeod Bethel-Thompson, that was an important piece. We know in the CFL, though, you do need 2 quarterbacks. So I know that's Pinball's philosophy. I know that's Vinny Magri's philosophy. They are going to be in the market for another quarterback to solidify that spot. I also expect them to be aggressive on the defensive end. There are rumors that Jagger Davis is an offer had been made in the legal tampering period, right? So that serves 2 purposes. One, you're getting a marquee defensive end game changer, game on the line. He'll make a play for you. And you always wonder, watching Jagger Davis, like, why don't we have a guy like that, right? He's that type of player. So that serves that purpose. You get a grade A type of player. 2, it keeps him away from Hamilton, right? We saw firsthand the type of damage this guy could do in a season. We saw you guys 5 times, but especially in the playoffs when things ramp up and you need your best players to make plays, he's that type of player. So I expect them to be aggressive on that front. If we are able to land a player of Jagger Davis's caliber, that's the move that takes you to that next level, right? It takes you from a good team to a great team. And those are the type of moves I see this team doing. Those kind of moves that, the type of players that show up big in the playoff type games, because that's what this team is playing for now, right? It's not going to be good enough just to make the playoffs. It's getting to be Grey Cup or bust territory for this team, right? So those are the kind of players I see them attacking in this free agency period.
You're talking about star defensive back Jagger Davis making that play in the end zone in the East Final, right? Looking like an All-Pro DB back there in that East Final. And again, I don't want to hit home on the East Final, but I mean, that game really did have a huge turning point in Dane Evans. And how much do you think that helps the players having that motivation of, man, we were close. And then looking at the Ticats and what they were doing as a former player, what does a finish to the season like that do heading into a new season?
It adds a lot of motivation to your off-season workouts individually. Like as soon as you figure out what team, because a lot of guys are friendly fears, but as soon as you figure out what team you're going to be on, once you find out you're going to be back on the Argos, right? You're on a great team, a team that's really close, 1 or 2 plays away from being in a Grey Cup, and it adds extra motivation because that's what everybody wants to be playing for. Everybody wants to be playing to be in a Grey Cup and have a chance to be in the Grey Cup, right? So and it factors into how you recruit other players, right? So if I'm at home and I know I'm coming back to the Argos, I'm calling all the free agents on that list. But hey, this is what we got at our facilities. This is what our GM is like. This is what our coach is like. And things of that nature, trying to sell my team and trying to help other guys come along that are on the fence. So, obviously, in the CFL, the teams, there's only 9 teams, so every team goes into each year feeling like they have a shot. But for the Argos, it was right there in the East Final, right? And it wasn't just, we hope to be there. No, you were there. Now it's time to put the pieces in place that takes you over the top.
Your colleague at TSN, Dave Naylor, reporting, like we had mentioned, McLeod Bethel Thompson appears to be off the market, re-signing with Toronto. Is he one of those players that maybe doesn't get the respect he deserves, that maybe he's underappreciated outside of Toronto? You look at his numbers and you go back to 2019. I think he was the league leader in passing yards or touchdowns. I mean, and then he does what he did last year, a 9-5 record to lead his team to first place in the East. Do you feel, as someone who's there covering this team, that maybe league wide, Bethel Thompson's not getting the respect he deserves?
It's a weird thing that I see from McLeod, and I kind of see it almost to the respect that Jimmy Garoppolo gets a little bit in the NFL, where he doesn't get the respect. Obviously, he's a winning type quarterback and fits that system perfectly. I don't know why he doesn't get the respect. Obviously, they see the big games and the lack of throw power and mistakes that he makes, right? So, but for McLeod Thompson, it's kind of a little bit similar where he's not a big name quarterback, like obviously Bo Levi Mitchell or Cody Fajardo or Zach Caleros, but he wins football games and he stabilized our locker room when Nick Arbuckle was traded, right? Guys were looking to him for leadership, and he was doing a lot of leadership things before, even when Nick Arbuckle was still the starting quarterback. And guys love playing for McLeod Thompson. It's something that you just can't explain, right? Guys gravitate towards him. He's a leader, almost the same way Dane Evans is in Hamilton. Guys love playing for him, and I think his numbers will, like, with the full season, the full training camp, and all the practice reps with all the starting receivers, the numbers will come around, and the perception around the league will change once he's installed as the starter from day one. He's never gotten that opportunity to be the starter from day one. Once that happens, and whatever season he has, then the criticism or love that he gets will be fair.
Yeah, and that's such a great point that he's the guy, and that's got to help him. That's got to help Dinwiddie, the whole offense, to be able to do something. You mentioned a second quarterback. You mentioned a playmaker like Ja'Garrett Davis, but is there anywhere else on the field, do you think, if there's a spot that maybe the Argos should be looking this week, talking to guys, where do you see on the field that the Argos need to maybe do some work?
So one of the best players the Argos had last season on the defense side of the ball was Dexter McCoy Sr. This guy, Chris Jones loved him. He could play him everywhere, can blitz him, could be in coverage, was a leader on that defense, quiet leader on that defense, was literally everywhere imaginable on the defense side of the ball. Massive loss. He retired. He's going to be a coach in NCAA Division I football. So that's going to be a massive hole to fill. And I'm thinking Cameron Judge can fill that hole, especially with the ratio. He was with the team last year, but suffered an injury and wasn't able to get on track. He's someone that potentially could fill that role because, he coming from Saskatchewan, a lot of the traits that Dexter McCoy had, Cameron Judge showed. He just wasn't able to get on the field. So that could be a route the Argos could go. But they need to fill that hole because the reason why the defense was good, obviously Sean Oakman in the middle, but Dexter McCoy, obviously, being the player that he was, defensive, he was one of the runner-ups for our team defensive player of the year. So honestly, that is a place I see that needs to be filled. And if they don't, I don't know. I just can't. I don't know where they go because I'm thinking back to all the games that we watched, and Dexter McCord was the reason why Toronto's defense what it was.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Just finally here, because obviously you played on the Argos, you know the rivalry between the Ticats and the Argos. What did it mean last year to see it competitive? I mean, because it had been so long that, maybe the Ticats were having an off year and the Argos were really good. We were talking a lot, especially in that East final. We went back to that Sky Dome game in the East. Like, what does it mean for the league, for these two cities, for Toronto especially, to have a solid two very good team rivalries going head to head 3, 4, 5 times a year?
It's unbelievable. Like, for the games to be competitive, for both teams to be good, for both teams to be battling for the Eastern crown, it's what the league wants. It's what the league needs. I mean, if you go back to when I played, these games were never competitive. The Ticats owned the Argonauts, right? And that kind of flipped a little bit this season. And, I think it helps even with attendance. I mean, the East final would have been, a pretty good crowd, but with Hamilton, bringing in their contingent of people, that just helps. It helps the rivalry. It's the longest rivalry in professional sports, right? And it's so much fun. I remember walking into that East final. The energy in that building, Louis, was incredible. It wasn't nothing like the Team Canada game that was just played yesterday, but it was. I imagine it was close. Like, the two franchises, the hate each other, right? And that's what sports is all about, competing at the highest level against your rival. That it just means more when you beat the Ticats. I mean, we this year we've beaten the Alouettes. It didn't mean as much as when we beat the Ticats, right? So that's what sports is all about. And having a rivalry is not quite the same when both teams aren't great. Like, when both teams are great, it just takes it to another level. And I think this is what the league needs. More rivalries like this. I know they've got it in Edmonton with Calgary and Edmonton, and they got it in the prairies with Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, and then now in the East. If we get that rivalry going, it would be amazing for the league.
Yeah, well said. And it's such a great point that these two teams, they both need to be good, and they both need to be able to knock each other out, 4 times a year to really, like you said, it's fun to watch for sure. Natey, despite what this show is called, my friend, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy dude, so it's always great to catch up with you. And I know I'm going to have a reason to call you up real soon.
Anytime, Louie B, anytime. And I'm going to say it one more time. We were friends.
All right. For the record, it's on tape, so people should know that. We are friends. Natey, thanks so much for doing this, brother.
Thanks, Louie. Have a great day.